Department directive that plans to track and prosecute domestic terrorists, which is really not a thing. The Constitution does not allow for domestic terrorism because that gives the power for the government to define any dissenters as terrorists. Well, the Trump department is saying, yeah, we want to do that. Here is some of the ways that they are defining domestic terrorist beliefs. I showed you the document this came from, and I just listed opposition to immigration enforcement, extreme views in favor of mass migration. All of these are protected beliefs. Sure, they're leftist, but you're allowed to think those things, especially the last one, support for overthrowing the U.S. government in favor of mass migration.
Now, this is where I disagree. Now, I do like the people from Redacted. I watch them a lot. But people have to understand the rules of engagement change when you are in a time of war. When you're in a time of war, you have to, the norms of a stable society are going to have to be put to the side, and some things are going to be thrown out of the window. Famously, Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas corpus during the Civil War because there were radicals on each side. They had to arrest senators. They arrested congressmen. Drastic measures are going to have to be taken to protect our republic. We are not a democracy. Unfortunately, there are people who are within our borders who speak English, who have American citizenship and were born here, but they are looking to subvert and help collapse our government. They're pushing for a coup. And there are two different sides, and that means that this is a civil conflict. The problem is our laws have been written so liberal that terrorists can actually use our own laws to protect them from us. And that has to be done away with. We're coming up on a time where probably in the next few months, there will be faction warfare probably right here on our soil. The left is increasingly more and more desperate because their entire existence, for the most part, is based off of illegal immigration. The illegals are being removed. Gavin Newsom is losing his mind. A lot of these Democrat mayors and governors are panicking because they're going to lose power. Because of that, there will be people that will carry out acts of violence. But if they, talk about it online, or if they're planning it, they can always claim free speech protections, or, actually, I can't be a domestic terrorist because it says that in the Declaration of Independence, or blah, blah. We cannot protect people that are looking to do us harm. Again, we are now in a time of war. So that means the norms are going to have to be suspended temporarily, or maybe even long term. The left did this to us back during the scamdemic. They labeled people like myself as extremists because I questioned the official narrative of the source of the imaginary virus that there was no proof even existed. They labeled me a domestic terrorist suspect, and they deleted my entire Facebook, 13 years of pictures, posts, because I didn't even comment. I just shared the Hunter Biden laptop story, but they had been flagging me and giving me 30-day bans because I questioned the scamdemic. They had already been doing that for a year prior. So this was at the end of 2020. They just nuked me from orbit. They were attempting to arrest people. They arrested Trump. They gave him 34 felony charges based off of one charge based on classification of funds. They said it was a business expense, but then they accused him of paying some lady off. But Trump never paid the lawyer. The lawyer paid her on his own. So they were already perverting the law. What Trump just did was everything that they said about us, he just reversed it towards them. We're going to need these protections over the next 4 years. They're always talking about there's going to be some kind of civil conflict. This is the administration. This is the time where that's going to happen. So we have to shore up some things for our protection. And you got to protect people from themselves also. There's a lot of people that are related to illegals. There's a lot of people that are related to pedophiles. They don't want to see their illegal relative deported, and they don't want their pedophile relative going to prison. So they're going to fight us. And we're doing what we can to make sure that they are not using our own kindness against us by turning our laws into protection for them. So that's why this is being written this way. I mean, think about it. Look at the very last one. It says, support for overthrowing the U.S. government. Now, that was cute, maybe back in the 1800s. That is not something that you should be saying now, especially in such a volatile period in our history. The fact that people want to protect, and they want to protect that speech, and said that we should allow people to openly advocate for the support of overthrowing our U.S. government. Wait a minute, but what if I support the U.S. government? So now me and you are at odds. You want to overthrow my government. I want to keep my government in power. This is war. But how am I going to profile you? How am I going to know who you are and go arrest you? You can't really do that right now. And that's why we have to change these laws. When these people think about it, they warned that they were going to kill Charlie Kirk on September 10th. And they said they talked about it, but nobody acted on it because it was just a threat. We're going to have to start taking these threats seriously. We are no longer in Kansas.
All of these are protected beliefs. Sure, they're leftist, but you're allowed to think those things, especially the last one, support for overthrowing the U.S. government. That's in the Declaration of Independence. So why is the Trump administration broadening their reach now and defining protected beliefs as terrorist beliefs? Here's the document that this came from. It was a response to President Trump's memorandum in September called Countering Domestic Terrorism and Organized Political Violence. Not surprisingly, it was in the wake of the Charlie Kirk assassination that the Trump administration decided to use it to expand their own powers and define domestic terrorism. Joining us to discuss is Ken Klippenstein from Clip News. This story broke and was published on their site, and the document was an exclusive download. So thank you so much for joining us. Fantastic reporting. Can you even believe, I mean, I guess I don't want you to reveal your sources, but it's hard to believe this is real because it feels so Orwellian when you read it. So tell us a little bit about the origin of this document and whatever sources you'd like to reveal.
Yeah, so I think how crazy it sounds on its face is part of the reason it's got so little attention in the mainstream press. I think only Reuters has written about it and The Guardian, a British publication. But I put the document right there. People can go and read it for themselves. The Justice Department actually confirmed its authenticity just yesterday. So there's no question that this is happening. To give you a sort of crash course in what this all means, it's basically creating, in essence, a bounty system for reporting on fellow Americans who are suspected of harboring those views and being motivated by those views in furtherance of terrorism.
Now, didn't I tell you that the left was doing this to us during the lockdown? Remember, they were putting up signs that said if you had a neighbor that was talking about I guess, people were being reported if they seen their neighbors having parties or having gatherings or not wearing masks, and they were putting up hotlines where they were asking the public to snitch on their neighbors. Their neighbor would be somebody like myself. There was no virus. I never pretended there was. If I did wear a mask when I had to fly, I wore one of those mesh see-through ones. It was still a mask, but it was obviously me basically giving a middle finger to anybody who looked at it. It was a joke. It was like a token mask. They wanted you to snitch on people like me and call the authorities and say I'm a public health hazard. You guys might not know what it was like, but I lived in California and I used to own an underground club that was open during the lockdown. And they had something called a super spreader task force, where basically armed police tactical SWAT teams would literally kick in the doors of clubs. But wouldn't that SWAT team be at risk of catching the deadly virus if there was a deadly virus to be caught? I mean, matter of fact, wouldn't everybody in the club just die? But yet you're supposed to break up these super spreader events. People had to literally call and narc and give out addresses, and people were doing that. Again, what Trump is doing is he's just reversing everything that was done to us except he's going to do it to the left and it's tenfold. There's people making active threats against us. And again, they want to overthrow our government. We need to be able to take these threats seriously and act on them. Right now, if there was a group of people plotting how to overthrow the government, right now, our DOJ and our police or FBI, we could not act on it because it would be protected by free speech. There are some things during a time of war, which is what we are in now, that are going to have to be suspended for whatever amount of time is required. We must preserve our republic. This is non-negotiable.
And so if you look at page 2 of that document you put up on the screen a moment ago, it describes the FBI establishing a fund to reward tipsters with that they can send to the FBI about people that they suspect advancing these views. And my point here, if you go down that list, a lot of that is left wing, but some of it also isn't necessarily political, like not having traditional views of family. I mean, that could be bachelors, that could be non.
Again, you know what? And Brad, you're absolutely right. They were kicking in the doors of churches, of the church. And then I remember they kind of made a deal with some of the churches where if the churches were helping them give out injections for the vaccine in the church, they were allowing them to be open. And it was just, that's when I stopped trusting these institutions because they played ball. Why would a church be worried about being closed down? If you're there to serve God, then you should not fear death. You shouldn't also fear persecution. If I was a pastor of a church, I would have forced them to come in there and physically drag me and my congregation out, and we would have church outside if we need to. But there would be no way I would comply with these orders, because if you believe in God, then there is nothing to fear. Matter of fact, if I'm going to get sick and die, then at least I'll be able to meet my God, and if I'm going to church, I'm a good person. I shouldn't be so afraid of that. I shouldn't be going out of my way to try to extend my life. I should be more than happy to give my life in the name of praising God and, keeping my community together. But yeah, a lot of the churches had their doors kicked in also. So there was no mercy on us. But now here are these people on Redacted bringing on somebody who's a liberal. He's like, well, what about these? Why do you want to protect speech about overthrowing the government, harming other people? So basically just subvertive topics. Why do you want that protected? Now, don't get me wrong. In times of peace, yes, abhorrent speech needs protection. Not the speech people wants to hear, but the speech people don't. Like when I tell people Michelle Obama's a man, people will say, Rico, that's terrible. But every single day, more and more people you're discovering were trans, like the president's wife of France, Brigitte Macron. That was considered hate speech at one time, but there's no such thing as hate speech. Speech is speech. But it's the speech that people might not want to hear or they're uncomfortable with that needs protection, not the speech you want to hear. But when you're talking about overthrowing the government, this is the foundation that the greatest country was ever built upon. These are our values. I've lived in other countries, other parts of the world. Every country has their own religious beliefs, their own values, their own traditions. But in the United States, we're evil and racist and homophobic because we want to have values and traditions and beliefs in our own country. But that's because we're humoring the rhetoric of those who hate the country. You got to think about it. There used to be 13% of the population was considered black. Now it's 10. The same people that voted for their own extermination, they all took those injections. They're all dying. Those are the same people now we're supposed to take advice from on how to run a government. But when you look at their cousins in the continent of Africa, where do they have the results that show we should be listening to them? Those are the people that subvert the country. Those are the people that hate the country. Those are the people that praise Assata Shakur when she died because she killed a white cop. These are the people that donate to black terrorists who kill white people on their behalf. You cannot take advice from them, but those are the ones who want you to protect their rhetoric against the government, against white people, against being conservative. Also, if you're trans or if you're gay and you like kids, they don't want to talk about our values, traditional family values. They hate what we are, but they refuse to leave. So what does that mean? That means we're going to have to fight. What did the Highlanders say? There can be only one. We can't have two different countries in one country. We're not going to have our constitutional republic and a multicultural democracy. The two can't coexist at the same time. There's no other option but war because one has to leave. Now, these people could literally all fly to some obscure part of Africa. They can go to South America. There's places they could go, start their own commune, since they're communists, and they can start their own colonies, but they're refusing to leave here. They could leave on their own and we don't have to fight, but they're refusing to leave. There's no option but to fight. So we need to get ahead of this ahead of time, because maybe we can mitigate the losses that we eventually are going to incur if we can just remove some of the key people and their element from the population ahead of time. So that's why it's necessary that we put these new laws in. I hope that makes sense.
Non-Christian, I'm Christian personally, but non-Christianity, there are people of different, there are Jewish people, there are all kinds of different religious views that don't necessarily mean that you're a leftist. And so what I would try to stress here is that, maybe if the focus seems left now, it's being defined very broadly, and the next administration that comes in might have a different view and be able to define these things differently. So I think it's really important that people push back just in principle.
Well,
right?
Yeah, the next administration was going to do that anyway. This is war, and that's why they said Trump's going to be the last president. The republic's not going to exist in the same form it does now, because it's too important for the world to lose. And if we leave it up to a bunch of disgruntled blacks and gays and illegals committing fraud to decide the future of the free world, we just can't risk it. I'm sorry. That's why we have armies. That's why we have weapons. I mean, if you don't like it, leave, or, put your dukes up. But we're not just giving it. We're not giving up our land. We're not giving up our home. We're not doing it this time.
Ken, great job on this. And you brought up the bounty system here, which as soon as you said that, it just reminded me of the reporting that we've done here and talked about the DIA app in Ukraine, which was really sort of the USAID rollout of the tracking app that they would use in Ukraine to rat on your neighbor. Like, you're basically able to go right inside the digital, boom, oh, my neighbor is, might have a Russian flag in his living room, or might be doing something that I want the SBU to come and check on. Like, I know that sounds like, oh, that's a bridge too far. That would never happen in the United States. But then here you go revealing these documents. So I don't see it too far away now that we have all this Palantir involvement and everything else that's coming under the digital surveillance in the United States.
In an alternate timeline, the left was in charge of Palantir, and the left was in this position. Trump knows what they would have done if they had this power, and it's going to be one of us. And I'm glad that Trump chose us over them. This isn't the time to be nice. This isn't the time to be considerate. We're in a time of war. We can't consider everybody's religions, everybody's opinions. No. Go somewhere else and go try to change their way of life. I don't see any of these people flooding Saudi Arabia talking about, we don't want Sharia law. You guys need to change that, and protesting. I don't see them doing it, or no other countries on earth. But yet they come to the United States, and everything about us they hate and want to change. Even the ones who are from here, and this is the only way of life they know. But they're taught to be adversarial to our way of life, even though this is where they're from too. Where does that lead? There are people, yes, you have citizenship. Yes, you speak English, but we're not the same type of American. There are people who, again, protect pedophiles, and there are people, those of us who hunt pedophiles. This coexistence where we have to humor your opinions on why pedophilia should be legal, those days have to come to an end. We've been barely coexisting for the past 50 years with people who we are so ideologically opposed, we cannot coexist peacefully. It's just not happening. What did Trump say about the Somalians? You can say that about these other groups of color as well. All they do is bitch, complain while sitting on welfare. They want to live in their communist utopia, but my capitalist tax money has to fund their lifestyle. You know, if we were able to remove birthright citizenship and permanently deport these groups of people, you know how much money we would save off of welfare entitlement programs? I mean, think about it. We only need law enforcement in massive numbers because of really just one demographic in this country. We need massive amounts, and we spend billions on law enforcement every single year in our big cities all over the country, really just to hold off one group of people from really robbing and killing the rest of us. That's it, if you think about it. And what if this right here, what Trump's doing, what if this is the first step to being able to repatriate some of these people to another country, removing them so we can save money and so that we can rebuild our economy? I mean, I can only hope for the best. I mean, if I was in charge, that's what I would do. And I would just give people guarantees because, you know, the results are there. He guaranteed us jobs would come back, rents would go down, crime would go down. And it's happening. 10,000 people have been arrested in LA from ICE. But we're looking at almost 1 million that's self-deported. The economy's improving so much, I'm going to sign up to join ICE my damn self because I want to see my community do better. The reason they're removing all these people is because there is a war coming and there's going to be illegals, the black community, the gay community, versus anyone white or anyone with conservative beliefs. That's going to be the two sides right there. We have to do what we can to reduce their numbers before the fighting starts. So that way it's not even a close call when the battles begin. And that's what we're doing right now by removing these illegals. And that's why news, so many of these other people are losing their minds because those are their weapons. And we're literally picking apart the army that they've built around us. This is all necessary. It might seem like they're going too far, but they aren't going far enough. Not yet. This is still early. But this is what's being passed and no one's talking about it. So I'm doing a video about it so I can help you. So I can help the people from Redacted explain it to you. So let's continue.
Yeah, the effect that this is going to immediately have. I'm working on a story right now. There was a very prestigious law firm in Washington called Covington and Burling. They put out an advisory to their clients, big corporate clients, saying that they anticipate that the effect of this memo that I reported on Saturday is going to be to have a chilling effect on speech. And this is a elite corporate law firm which has no activist interest in advancing one view or another. They're just telling their clients this is going to be the effect, conduct yourselves accordingly. And that's what's really negative. I mean, even short of arrests and all the things that the FBI can do through the joint terrorism task forces that they have in every state across the country after 9/11.
Do you understand what he's saying? He's basically saying that this is going to affect speech, but do we understand why? Right now, people can openly issue death threats against me in a roundabout way on social media, and I can't really do nothing, and it's not actionable by law enforcement because they didn't directly say it, but they're calling for it in a slick roundabout way. We have to be able to address these threats instantly because sometimes people are just talking about stuff, but then they're going to really make do on it. And we can't risk that they're just all talk and they're just saying stuff online. What if they actually are really planning on doing some of these things? You don't know if they're actionable or not, but my thing is, why risk it? I mean, think about it. Nobody who's a productive member of society with a family, with responsibilities, is part-time moonlighting, being a domestic terrorist, threatening people on the internet. You're usually a productive person or you're an antithetical person throughout your life. We're not going to be removing people that are important pieces of the society. We're going to be removing the waste. These are people that are unnecessary for where we're going. The country has to change. The rest of the world laughs at us because they're like, you guys are basically destroying yourself by allowing just any and everybody to come over here. They come over here with their anchor babies. These kids have citizenship, but their allegiance is to a foreign country. But they're over here talking, and you have to listen to them because they were born here. All these things have to change. All speech cannot no longer be accepted from just anybody. We have too much to lose, and the stakes are too high. And we decide we're not going to do it no more. Think about it. If we decide we're not going to listen to you anymore, we're going to do things differently, what are you going to do? Sue us? Okay. And who's going to enforce whatever judgment? Does a judge have an army? No. Does your lawyer have an army? Do you have an army? How are you going to enforce anything against us? You can waste your time if you want to and make yourself a target, but you're going to have to get down or lay down. America is going to be for patriots, not for people that hate this country. America is only going to be for people that love it. And that's how it's going to be.
Completely short of that, the effect we're already seeing, according to that law firm and just common sense, if you read the directive, is it's going to scare people and make them not want to express things. And that is a big loss, because that is what this country is supposed to be all about. Is it doesn't matter what your views are, as long as you're not hurting anybody, you can express them. And unfortunately, we're already seeing it have that effect. And that's what
And Brad, you're absolutely right. Roblox and Discord are full of pedophiles, but you see what they're doing. You're absolutely correct. They're using our free speech laws against us, and they're using that to shield and protect pedophiles. But they're going to be doing the same in the future when it comes to domestic terrorists. They don't want you to target them and say, oh, because of some words, that's protected speech. They want to use your own laws and your own kindness against you. We cannot allow that. You know, all these things are going to have to change. I just did a video about Roblox like a week ago, and they banned it in Russia altogether because they're actively pushing the gay agenda onto children. And we all understand the gay agenda, right? The gay agenda is the depopulation agenda. Look at the rates of how many gay people commit suicide. You know, think about it. Instead of having to fight a man in battle to kill him, wouldn't it be more efficient if you could just manipulate him for X amount of years and he gets so frustrated with life that he ends up doing it to himself? You can save yourself the bullets. It's a beautiful plan when you want to get rid of your enemy, but you have to infuse it into their media, into their culture. Russia sees that. They banned it outright. It should be already banned over here in the United States. Kids should not have the option to be groomed by pedophiles on gaming systems or over social media. But we're not a serious country. Well, we weren't. We have not been a serious country until now. Now we're going to get serious, and now we have to flex. You see all these judges with all these judgments against Trump. You got to do this. You can't do that. ICE has to take off their mask. Okay, who going to make us? How about this, judge, whatever the fuck your name is? Why don't you walk up to a federal agent and grab his mask? Good luck, judge. They're going to shove that robe so far up your ass. You're going to need a gavel to scoop it out. Because your rulings and our Constitution do not coincide with one another. My Constitution has men with guns standing behind it to enforce it. You, with your robe and your gavel, have nothing but empty words. It's not even a competition. We have the men and we have the military. You have words. Words are going to talk is cheap. The value of words is going to have to diminish for a while. We have to stabilize things. And right now we're way too unstable.
intended effect is.
That's a great point.
Well,
the threat of it.
Right. Yeah, it's self-censorship, which is also a violation of our First Amendment. If you are thinking that you'd like to get some holiday skin.
Don't get me wrong. I have a sponsor as well. I understand that, you have to have commercials. I just didn't want to hear it because we're doing a video. So that's why we had to fast forward for a second.
Because the Supreme Court has many times ruled that advocating for the abolition of the U.S. government or a major systematic change is protected speech as long as you are not inciting violence or lawless action. And so
it's a slippery slope. Who's to say what is going to excite somebody? You can say, oh, yeah, just because I'm talking about overthrowing the government and how Trump should be dead, I'm not actually saying, no, you're being slick. Now you're using the speech thing against us. We are in different times. When these laws were created, there was no social media. There wasn't no mass media advertising. You weren't able to radicalize people and try to call for a coup. Think about it. You had senators just get on the news and tell soldiers hey, well, and they were, let's be honest, they were speaking to specifically Black and gay soldiers that have not yet been purged by Pete Hegseth, telling them that if Trump does anything illegal, you can ignore his orders. But as a soldier, your job is to follow orders, not to discern what is or is not legal. That's not your responsibility. That's treason. So you're asking people to give up their entire career. Now, there's already been one Black, I believe it was a major, who had to resign because he was given orders and he rejected them. People are clapping for him, but you threw away your career because you're an ideologue. But again, certain people are going to have to be removed. If not, then we're still taking on water. It's like having a leak in a boat. You're dumping water out, but then you got other soldiers that are scooping water and putting it back into the boat when you're trying to scoop it out. We're going in different directions. There's going to be some big changes coming up. And I'm not even in the administration, but I can already see it because there's no other logical options. There's no way you can just have such a huge blind spot and you don't want to look at the obvious source of big problems and say, I'm just not going to do nothing about it because it's not politically correct. I think we're past the point of being politically correct. I think we literally have to take drastic measures. Again, silently asking the Supreme Court to remove the birthright citizenship clause. I'm telling you, that right there means people who have been here for generations, we can come up with new rules and a new system where if you hate this country and all you talk about is reparations and racism and oppression, we can literally repatriate you to Ghana, to Kenya. And you don't got to speak the white man's language. You ain't got to speak English no more. You can speak Swahili. There's no Trump. It's not the president of no country in Africa. There's no ICE. You can definitely go home. And we will be removing certain people because they hate this country. That's why when any of these other foreign countries, the first group they usually try to influence is the Black community, because it's like we already have a weaponized group within the borders that know the terrain and speak the language. That's why every time you look up every movement, whether it's the gay movement, the trans movement, every single movement has to involve the Black community because they're already poised and groomed to want to overthrow and hate this country, hate the language, and hate white people. It's already on the plate. We have to diffuse that. That's a ticking time bomb. What if we could what if we can diffuse the Black time bomb? What if we could remove that threat? Then what would these countries do? Who would they radicalize then? You don't see them going after these other nations. We're the only ones with a weak link that's literally exposed to the world. You know, if it comes down to people or my country, I'm going to pick my country over any group that's based off of something nobody had control over, which is how they looked when they were born. You know, you don't get to control your parents, but you can control where you live and you can control your own ideas and what you believe. I'm a patriot. America first, before any of these other shallow bullshit, color, skin color, hair type, and I don't give a goddamn about none of that shit. I mean, they talked about Jesus. I've literally seen those people. Who you think it was some white supremacist that killed Tupac or any of my other favorite rappers? Hell, everybody I've ever met in my entire life was killed by somebody Black. Those are the same people that are literally making open threats against the government. It's not just illegals and it's not foreign terrorists. We have people domestically here that are active. They just need a little bit of push. We have to diffuse it. That's why we have to come up with these new rules. We have to. Now, maybe the rules will change after the time when we go into a time of peace, but who knows how long that's going to take? It could be 10 years before we're in a time of peace again.
I would have to think that the Supreme Court would throw this document out and say the Department of Justice cannot do this. We cannot define domestic terrorists. This is a violation of First Amendment rights. But someone has to bring it to the court. Who would do that, right? And so maybe it's one of these law clients stepping out of bounds and saying, screw them, I don't care. I'm not self-censoring. And then it goes, how do you see that? It really is only the courts that can take this power away right now.
Well, I think there would have to be broad-based opposition on principled grounds to this, not just from the left wing and from the Democrats, but across the country with the long-term realization that even if you're not being targeted with this now, there's going to be someone else in the White House. And if you look at the, say, federal government's response to January 6th, I don't think that should have been investigated as domestic terrorism. You know, if someone broke a window, if somebody damaged something, sure, charge them with, property destruction or something. But that was treated by the FBI under the Biden administration essentially as terrorism. So that shows you that the other party is willing to do this too. And I think.
But yeah, I mean, think about it. The J6 people were enemies of war. They were kept in prison for loitering or what was it, trespassing charges, given years. Many of them spent time in solitary confinement, even though nothing they did was illegal. It's the people's house, and it was open to the public that day. Now there were almost 300 FBI agents that were literally causing property damage and destruction, but it wasn't the people, and they hunted down thousands of people, almost 4,000, to arrest them and force them to come to DC, and they were able to convict people, innocent old ladies. They turned their lives into hell for years. So they've already done this to us. What we're just going to make sure we do is never let them to get in a position to do it again. That time is not coming. We're in the infants. We're in the very, very early days of the Trump presidency. We're not even a year in. We got 3+ more to go. So, talking about what the next administration is going to do, a lot of us aren't going to live long enough to see the next administration because war is coming. You think Charlie Kirk's the last assassination? They tried to kill Trump and Butler and almost did. There are more assassinations coming. There's more attacks coming. It's over 20 million strangers with no identification, no background checks walked across the border into the country, and we're moved around by the Biden administration to different parts of the U.S. We don't know who they're listening to. We don't know what orders they have. We have no idea what they're planning. But we got to find them. But it makes it hard when you have blacks and gays who are American citizens screaming that nobody is illegal on stolen land. Don't profile people if they're terrorists. Wait until after they do something terroristic to then go after them. Like we can't humor all speech in everyone's conversations. That's a weak link. And it's a public safety threat to even humor what they're saying, but it's subvertive. They're subverting the government with that speech and our efforts. They want to chase, when you go to these protests, it's usually blacks and gays that are mad about illegals being arrested and deported, and they're showing up to want to fight with our federal agents. That's obstruction, but we're afraid to put them in jail because they can say they're exercising their what? Their constitutionally protected free speech by being out there and getting in the face of law enforcement with their phones out and trying to dox them. That has to stop. That's why I talk about that so much on my channel, because we have to end that. And I justify it and I explain it. I'm long-winded because I explain everything. Let's see here. Yeah, you know what? And you're right. That's why people like Nick Fuentes. He's rude and he's abrasive. The same reason people like Andrew Tate. Maybe the same reason why some people like me. We're just speaking. We speak from the heart and we analyze what we said after. I don't carefully curate what I'm going to say based on how people are going to feel, because if I did, then I wouldn't say anything at all, because everyone's going to have a problem with something. And if I'm worried about people talking bad about me, well, then I might as well just give up on everything and just become a Democrat and just go along to get along and just do what Snoop did. You guys want to indoctrinate my grandkid? That's a bad idea. I get a little bit of pressure. You know what? Take the kid. You can go fuck them, whatever you want to do. Go for it. No, that's not me. I'm going to stand on principles, and I'm not necessarily worried about people liking me. I'm an adult. No one likes me anyway. As an adult, you shouldn't even care if people like you. We're not in high school anymore. Most adults' kids don't even like them, and you're a man. You're an ATM. Nobody cares. Nobody likes men anyway. People like women. They like kids. They love pets. I love my dogs. People love my dogs, but nobody really likes me. People tolerate you as a man, but they don't really. You're only as good to people as what you can do for them. So I'm not worried about being liked anyway. That's why I talk the way I do. If I was worried about being liked, I would be, I don't know, somewhere right now trying to defend Planned Parenthood on an X thread or some dumb shit like that.
It's very naive to look at this and say they're not going to come in with some kind of a political mandate at the very least to try to do the same thing under pressure from their own supporters. So I think,
amen to that, Brad. If the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first. Jesus, that's a hell of a quote, brother. Amen to that.
Again, opposition to this has to be principled, or there isn't going to be a meaningful opposition at all. As to your point about the courts, unfortunately, after 9/11, the courts have created an entire legal apparatus to allow, in the news right now is these boat strikes. Well, you know what those remind me of? Those are very much like the targeted assassinations by drones under the Obama administration, which created the legal apparatus for them to go ahead and do that. Now we're seeing a very different politician, Donald Trump, doing something similar to a much different group here in our hemisphere. So, I'm very skeptical that the legal approach is going to offer much of the way of a solution to this, because they have had so much time to build this almost Calvin ball doctrine of counterterrorism that I agree with you is completely contrary to the spirit of the Constitution. But unfortunately, these law firms and years of case law have given them a really free hand. And unfortunately, that global war on terror, we're now seeing it come home. There's a focus on the hemisphere now. There's a focus on domestic terrorism. There's a focus on the Western hemisphere, the area around the United States. And that is something that should be debated. And, when you look at Congress talking about, did they violate the rule of law? Did they not? It's kind of like, it's kind of it's kind of aside from the bigger question of like, should we have this colossus focused at home instead of at these groups like ISIS and Al Qaeda? And there really has.
And the answer is absolutely 100% yes. We've been saying this for years. People don't understand what's going on in Venezuela. The Belt and Road Initiative was going to expand to South America. China had already been sending tankers full of oil to China from our hemisphere to China in another part of the world. I'm sorry, if South America is for sale or South America is up for the taking, then we're going to take it. We're not going to allow China to put a beachhead in Venezuela with Russian protection. Russia sent a big portion of its fleet off the coast of Venezuela to help protect the Chinese assets. And what did the United States just do? We just hijacked an oil tanker and we just sailed it all the way to Texas, because why wouldn't we? The question is, you want to stop us? Okay, great. You got to ask yourself, you in what army? Everyone says that we don't have the strongest military on earth. Well, why don't they try us? See, we have something called resolve. It's an American thing. Even if you win the battle, you're going to lose the war. We are a warrior class. That's why you said there's different types of Americans. Those of us who are patriots were warriors. We've been preparing for a fight to defend our country against another country, or even against our own government. We've been preparing for it our whole lives. There are others who are weak and who are scary and cowardly, and they hate the country, but they won't leave because we protect them and we give them free fucking food. They're like cats. The Americans who are now in charge again, the Pete Hegseths and the Trumps, we're here to take names and kick ass, and we can go in either order. If you want it, come and get it. But since Venezuela was for sale and they were going to try to sell themselves to China, well, now we're just going to take Venezuela and we will eat their food. The West, this hemisphere of the world will remain in the hands of the United States. Maybe we're going to be pulling out of the Korean and the Asian peninsula, and we're also pulling out of Europe. There's only about 4 countries in Europe that have not been completely invaded and overran with illegals from Africa and the Middle East. Those 4 countries are the only countries in Europe we're going to have relationships with. We're dumping the rest. The rest of them are gone anyway. Those countries are over. They're tanked. The globalists taking them over. Those countries are finished. But countries like Poland and Hungary, they didn't do the mass ingrate. They didn't open their borders, and lose their sovereignty. And Trump's like, look, let's make relationships with them and pull them out of the EU and come up with our own bloc, and that'll be our foothold in Europe. The whole world, the maps are going to be changing. We're in different times, and we're going to go from a unipolar world to a tripolar world. It'll be 3 superpowers now: the United States, China, Russia. That's it. And we're going to have to go from there. But first things first, our hemisphere belongs to us. That's why we took Greenland. We're going to have to take Canada, and Venezuela is pretty much probably the most valuable real estate that we need in South America. They got the oil. We don't really need the Amazon. We don't need a bunch of Wakandas. I mean, and Chile doesn't have much to offer. Argentina, that's where Hitler died. I guess there's some good stuff going on down there, but we don't really need them for resources. Venezuela is the horn that we really wanted to keep access from these other superpowers moving in. So that's why we had to do that, by the way.
Hasn't been much of a debate. It's focused more on these kind of very complicated legal questions rather than this big picture, I think, doctrinal point about what do we want to do, and is it making us safer? I don't think it is.
Right. And I'm struck by your point that the media has not freaked out about this, that the Trump administration is labeling anti-capitalism as a terrorist. Can we put that list up one more time that I pulled from the document? Because this is all the liberal media.
It is. If you're okay, think about it. If you're anti-capitalism and our system of government is capitalist, then what are you pro? You can't just be anti-capitalist, but you're not pro something else. You're either going to be a capitalist, a socialist, or a communist. Socialism and communism are both anti-American. If you're in America pushing for anti-American policies, and how are you planning on implementing these policies? Well, you're looking to commit acts of terror. In my opinion, opening the border and letting illegals vote in favor of policies that affect Americans, letting illegals do things that can adversely affect Americans is terrorism, in my opinion. Because isn't terrorism's definition is when people try to use fear to help change your political outcomes or something like that? Well, then, yeah, that is terrorism. Opposition to law or immigration enforcement, that is terrorism. If you want to stop us from arresting people that are criminals, that's an act of terrorism. I agree. If you have extreme views in favor of mass migration, basically of because for every one immigrant that comes in and votes, one American's vote becomes null and void. So for every illegal, that's one more American their vote means nothing because you dilute it. So in favor of mass migration is removing the right to vote from Americans. I would consider that a form of terrorism as well. Adherence to radical gender ideology. Do you believe in castrating children and having sex with them when they're underage? If so, that is terrorism. To a person like me, which is I'm a staunch conservative. I'm a patriot. I live in the United States. I protect children. I hate pedophiles. I'm a pretty normal guy. But in my opinion, radical gender ideology is terrorism because you're harming children. It doesn't really that's like some of the worst terrorism, in my opinion. Anti-Americanism, terrorism. If you don't like America, get the fuck out of here. Anti-Christianity, the religion of the land that our forefathers believed in. That's a little iffy, but to hell with it. Other countries have their beliefs and nobody goes over there to complain. So don't complain over here or go over there. Go somewhere else. No one's going to Israel and saying, you guys should get rid of Judaism and just listen to Christians. Nobody does that. So don't do that over here. Take that shit somewhere else. Hostility to traditional views on family, religion, and morality. So if you're here to subvert the family structure, you want to be gay, you want to live that lifestyle, and you want to convince kids to live that lifestyle. That's mental terrorism. Mental terrorism is a word people, I kind of just coined it, but is when you're, when you take a young child whose brain is a sponge and you introduce all these ideas on gender ideology and sexuality, and you try to sexualize them young, you can destroy their mind. A lot of these young men, especially when they're molested as kids and they grow up and they think about what happened to them and they're so ashamed that they self-delete. Famously, not too long ago, one of the producers from the Ellen show the black dude, he had gay stuff when he in his past when he was a kid that he regretted. Grew up, got married, had children, but he still had nightmares about what he used to do. And the shame he made him commit suicide. So that is a form of terrorism, in my opinion. Harming children young, perverting them young, molesting them, and all that. That is all terrorism. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. It is 100% terrorism in my book. So apparently, the Trump administration is reading from the book of Rico Limbaugh, and I like it. They support me, I support them. There's only been one thing I didn't like that he said was that he didn't think America had the talent. Americans didn't have the talent to build the missiles or to build the batteries, but the Koreans did. And I was like, well, fuck these Koreans. We have Korean barbecues all over America. If we can figure that out, we can figure out how to make some batteries too, Trump. Get it together. Besides that, everything else me and him are good on, in my opinion.
Media's favorite beliefs, anti-ICE,
anti-Christianity,
open borders, anti-Christianity.
Well, you see, that's why the J's popularity is in the fucking gutter. There won't be any support in 5 years for the Zionist nation. I don't even know if it'll still be there in 10 years because the new generation of children coming up who were watching the genocide these past couple of years, when they start getting voted into power in 10 years, you think they're going to forget all those children with their limbs being blown off who are waiting in line for water? You think anyone's going to have any love for a Zionist? No one likes them anymore now. Now, I'm not a fan of the globalists. I don't like their agenda, but I mean, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, I guess is the best way. I guess we'll just cross the path. We'll cross that path when we come to it about how to handle the globalists. But if they're going to get rid of the Zionists for us, if they're pushing them out, then I guess we got to just let them do their thing.
I would think that they would be afraid of this and freak out about it, given how much they hate the Trump administration. Why would they be silent? And, a lot of these things are things I do not believe, but I am freaking out because I believe that you should be able to believe them. So why are only libertarians freaking out about this?
I don't know. What she's saying is kind of like it's that extreme liberal mind meld shit. Because think about it. You can literally compare it to a pedophile. Well, they think about having sex with kids, but they don't act on it. So you're telling me I can't even think about it? Yeah, no, you shouldn't even be thinking about it because now you're going to try to figure out ways to get away with it. No one's just harboring these views for fun. Everything a person thinks of in the human mind, they plan on acting on them for the most part. Because what's the saying? Mind over matter. You can create your own reality. If you're fantasizing about a coup or hurting people in government or attacking ICE, and if you have these extreme beliefs, you should get the fuck out of here before we put you in a box. You should leave before you end up in a cage because the prisons are not nice, or it could be even worse, but you do not want to, if you have those type of ideas, why put yourself in harm's way? There has to be somewhere you can go that you enjoy, that you love, like a place where you're happy. If you're not happy here and you have these views and you want to use our speech protections to say, well, I can think about these things if I want to. And what we're supposed to do, just that's like having a roommate and your roommate says every night he dreams about stabbing you in your sleep. How are you supposed to lay there and get a good night's rest knowing that your roommate and you guys are sharing the same bedroom because just wait, he's having dreams and they might just one day wake up in the middle of the night and act on those fantasies? I'm sorry, buddy. You're going to have to find somewhere else to live. We can't live here together, buddy. Yeah, I know. You the freedom to dream what you want to dream, but you got to dream it somewhere else because this isn't going to work. You cannot be too liberal that you allow your own safety to be compromised. Look what happened to the Ukrainian girl. That's what she did. She got on that bus surrounded by black people. She was so liberal that she was like, you know what? There's nothing to be afraid of. And if I am afraid, that's racist. I'm not racist. I can turn my back to this guy and go to sleep, neck exposed. How'd that turn out? No, you cannot coexist with people that have these fantasies of destroying you and they have dreams of burning you and your kid. You cannot know. You can't. It never works out. Look around. I do stories about these hate crimes that nobody wants to call them hate crimes because the person who does them is black. It's literally happening every single day and nobody wants to say nothing. That's terrorism also, in my opinion. You're going to have to make a decision on, how serious you are about making sure that you protect yourself. You're going to have to decide.
What do you think?
Yeah. So I've worked in the mainstream media for several years before going independent, and I have some insight into the manner of thinking.
Exactly, Brad. Man, I just hope he doesn't have that fantasy again of slicing me up while I'm asleep. Let me go back to bed. Night, and what are you gonna do? Put one of those sleep masks on too? So now it's even darker. Now you can't see shit instantly. Yeah, no, we're not. But think about it. We've been living like that for 50 years now. People that hate us have the right to live right next door to us and literally openly say terrible, evil things that they want to do to us. I can give you examples. I can show you. I literally have these people, they're friends of mine. And I've known these people for years. You think I knew they were psychos? Where they have fantasies of killing people because they're white or harming their children because they're white, because they're so insecure and they have these extreme inferiority complexes and they never went to counseling about it. And they think that white people are their only enemy. Who are they considering white? Basically anybody who lives in the United States, but they live in the United States too. So it's kind of like a person who's willing to burn down a house, even if they're still in it. But I'm supposed to sleep comfortably next to you? Maybe I got lucky the last 50 years. I don't want to do another 50 sleeping next to you. I just don't. I don't. And I'm not. I refuse. So we got to fight, then fuck it. You were going to try to kill me anyway. You guys are psychos. You guys are monsters. They were going to kill you anyway. Whether I made this video or not, these people are going to hate you and kill you anyway. Doesn't matter. So you might as well fight back.
It's dominated by folks in New York City and Washington, which isn't necessarily of itself bad, but that, tends to be a certain viewpoint. And that viewpoint tends to be liberal, and they tend to trust the institutions. They tend to like the FBI. They tend to like the Justice Department. And because of that, just based on my personal conversations, I think there's this sense that, this is some crazy directive, but those guys aren't going to implement this because that would just be too crazy. They're going to realize that they shouldn't do this. And it's like
that the government's going to not exercise power. Okay. That's a good one.
They're like restraining themselves.
At the top of the segment, you made the point that this is what I reported last week was the implementation order of the National Security Presidential Memorandum 7 from a couple of months ago. So I had hoped that I've been banging my drum trying to draw attention to NSPM 7, which really is an assault on American speech.
Yes.
That I don't think we want. I don't think any sensible person wants.
I want it. Because I've looked at it from both sides. And if I got to choose whether you don't know where the speech is powerful. Speech is also influential. And speech can turn a level-headed person. It can convince them to do things that are bad for them and bad for everyone. You got to kind of be careful because it can be curated a certain way. Again, when we're in peacetime, speech is speech, but at least we're all still Americans. We are not all Americans right now. So different speech from humoring speech from non-Americans and giving them American constitutionally protected free speech, it's a bad idea because they're not looking to make things better. 50 years ago, we were homogenous. When the war started, we all were Americans when we went to go fight, and we were protecting our families back home. No matter what race you were, no matter what, everybody was pretty similar. We were pretty much all the same. Now we're not. We're extremely fractured, and it's like there's a huge and growing amount of people that want to see this country burn and cease to exist. And they're living here, speaking the language, but they've just been allowed to be radicalized and curate their thoughts in their speech without being arrested or charged or facing any repercussions, so that they think it's legal now. And now they just openly talk about it. Like I seen somebody put some of the most evil, crazy stuff on Facebook. I was like, why is this even allowed to be here? Because other people are reading it and it's inspiring them to want to say more. And then eventually someone does something evil. And I'm watching it and I'm reporting on it. But it all starts with somebody telling them something. It all starts with speech. I'm not saying remove free speech, but you know, there's some speech that during times of war, if your speech can allow me to learn who you are, if your speech can help me identify if you're a threat or not, well, then I do want you to speak so I can know who to arrest. I need to know who you are. Again, I can't sleep next to people that want to kill me. That's just a bad idea. Especially if you have kids and a family. If you die, who's going to take care of them? Yeah, I'm not that fucking liberal.
And this implementation order, this is basically, if that was the war plan, NSPM 7, this is kind of the tactical plan for like, here's how you're going to go about doing that thing that Trump signed several months ago. So this, I had hoped would tell people they're serious about this. It's not just rhetoric. I understand that Trump says things sometimes and he can be a troll and he's not always serious about things that he says, but you don't have the Justice Department drafting a memo like this and sending it to every federal agency signed by her and with specifics about put money into this fund to reward people for tips. Go back.
You know what's crazy? You're right. You know what? I actually already put together I'm doing a whole episode about that guy that was just arrested by ICE for making those threatening demands. But you know what I don't like about it? They only arrested him because he's white. That's it. You want me to prove it to you or no? Okay, I'll prove it to you. Let me show you a black person that said stuff way more evil and worse, and he's still free. So this is my Instagram. This is, you can follow me on Instagram if anybody's watching this video, Right Wing Rico. I post videos. But let me show you what a non-white person, black dude, what they're allowed to say, and nobody talks about arresting them or anything. Let me see, how far down do I have to go to find this guy? I mean, it's shocking to me that they're allowed to say this, but if you know, they'll arrest the white guy, but they won't arrest this guy for saying that. Let's see here. No, right here. Here we go.
That is how we are going to exterminate white people, because that, in my estimation, is the only conclusion I have come to. We have to exterminate white people off of the face of the planet to solve this problem.
Do you hear these fucking apes clapping? You hear these chimps clapping? Fucking sea lions clapping for open calls for genocide? So you mean to tell me, right, he can say this and not get arrested, but ICE is kicking in the door of a white man who said some evil, threatening things, but he wasn't openly calling for genocide? These people, like this man in this video, should be arrested. However, because of how the laws are currently written, he is protected. That's why Trump is signing all these new memorandums, and things have to change. This is what I mean. Think about it. If you're a white person and this guy moves in next door to you, how good are you going to be able to sleep? Tell me.
Now, I don't care whether you clap or not, but I'm saying to you that we need to solve this problem because they are going to kill us.
Now he's lying. You want to kill them. You just called for that. And another thing, if you feel they're so dangerous, why not move your black ass to fucking Senegal? Why not go to Nigeria? Why not go to Benin or go to one of the other, 50 something odd African nations? Go somewhere where everyone looks like you and be happy. Why do you remain here in this land if you think these people want to kill you, they hate you, and you want to kill them? Why even continue to speak their English? You know, their language. You know, English comes from England. Every day you have the option to not speak English. Every day you have the option to not live around white people if you hate them so much. Every day you have the choice to leave. Why would you choose racism and oppression? So either there is no racism and oppression, Or you have what is it? What's that syndrome called? Where people like they're what Satan masochists, where people like getting beaten, they love the pain. Maybe you like the pain because you feel this country is so racist and evil, but you choose to live here every day. Maybe you like it. I don't think you have a real big problem with it. But this is an example of what I'm talking about. Why? Now, think about it. If I'm an adversarial country and I know that this is what the core of this community in the country, 90-something% of them, if I know this is how they feel, I'm going to lean into their victimhood and I'm going to figure out how to use them to slice the throat, physically speaking, of the American population. This is a weapon that's already in here. Again, this is why every movement attaches itself to them. They're already radicalized. Do they have an army? No. Are they doing anything but talking? No. But their words are infecting the minds of even the children of white people. Now, children of white people talk like them, act like them, and believe the same things and talk bad about white people. But your kid is white too. But they're so mentally brainwashed by this rhetoric, by this speech has brainwashed them so much they don't even realize what they're saying. This man is not a patriot. He hates the United States, hates our government. There's nothing proud about him. But we have to live next door to him. We should allow this speech. Tell me what you think.
And I will leave on that. So we have to just set up our own system and stop playing and get very serious and not be diverted.
So how is this okay? He's saying what he said.
Unfortunately, he's the majority of his people. And I used to not believe that until I started to talk to more black people about it. They all want revenge, not for slavery, but just for the stories of it. There's no proof any of them are related to anybody that was a slave. There's very little proof that slavery even happened the way we say it did. It seems like they kind of changed the names and definitions. An indentured servant is now being called a slave. And they're now calling slaves illegal aliens, because if you come over here and you work for slave wages, but they call, instead of calling you a slave, they'll call you an illegal. It's ridiculous. But yeah, that's a huge problem. That's a huge blind spot. And we have to shore that up. And we have not been serious, but we have to be. And guys like him do not realize that people like this are saying these types of comments and it's infecting people. This right here is spreading.
Is how we are going to exterminate white people, because that, in my estimation, is the only conclusion I have come to. We have to exterminate white people off of the face of the planet.
Now, if racism was real and white supremacists were real and the KKK was real, he would have already been removed. He would have been deleted. He'd be a Christmas ornament, if you know what I mean. But he's not. He's still walking around safe as can be. We have a big problem. We have a really scary problem. When Nick Fuentes said we're being Negrofied, he's talking about this, and it's true. This rhetoric is now spreading to people of other races in this country. They're using the black playbook to subvert the country and to get their way and to shame the power structure or anybody white. They shamed them into submission by just calling them names, calling them white supremacists and calling them racist. And these people just they freeze up. Like, why do you care what these fucking monsters think about you? You have to do what's right. So guess what? If it's going to take Trump and Pete Hegseth to save us from ourselves, then so fucking be it. Remove these things for a while and we'll just deal with the consequences later. That's it.
Retroactively 5 years through your intelligence that you already have and see if you can reopen cases to make terrorism cases. I mean, there are all these specifics in it about how you go about implementing that. This is serious stuff. This is not just rhetoric. I'd hope that they would wake up to that fact. But so far, only Reuters has written this, is the only major American media institution that's written anything about it. And I think it's because of that kind of reflexive faith in institutions that media tends to have. They tend to believe in.
Yeah, I personally, I say I'm racist, but I say I'm everything-ist. Racist it's an understatement. You think Andrew Tatum is bad? Wait until you get a load of me. You think Nick Fuentes is bad? Wait until you talk to me for a few minutes. I mean, you think these other people, or you think Myron is bad? Wait till you get a load of me. I've been worse than these people. I just didn't really, I just had other stuff that I was doing. And I really did. But now it's like, it's important that people need to know that those, what they consider insults, are really compliments. It means you have good pattern recognition skills. You don't want to end up as a victim, do you? How much do you, how bad do you want to prove to these people that you're not racist? How far will you go? Will you just will you get on the subway and close your eyes and lay back like this with your throat exposed? Will you still do that after what you've seen happen over the past 2 months? How bad do you want to impress these people? Me personally, fuck those people. I don't want to impress them at all. Dislike me. I hope they dislike me so much that they stay the hell away from me. That's where I'm at with it. I don't like kumbaya. I'm not doing a campfire with these monsters because I know who they really are. Everyone I know has been killed. Everyone I've ever met in my entire life been killed by somebody that looks like him.
Solve this problem.
Not one person I ever met was killed by an Asian, Armenian, a Chaldean, a Japanese, a Chinese. Everyone I ever met in my entire life was killed by somebody black. And this fucker has the nerve to sit here and say they're going to kill us. Who, you? So you're going to kill us? Us going to kill us? Who are you talking about? You fucking monster. Even the numbers don't even back up what he's saying. It's mental. But that mental manipulation expresses itself in the speech, and it can pervert the minds of simple-minded people, or, you know, people that are, their brains are a sponge. That's why they try to talk to young kids about this bullshit. And that's why we have to take these measures and cut it off to make sure it doesn't happen. So they're trying to make it seem like we're censoring speech, or we're going to cut off the free speech. But it just seems like people are underestimating what kind of speech is actually out there. I don't care how liberal I am. There's no way you're going to convince me that this speech is A-okay.
Now, I don't care whether you clap or not, but I'm saying to you that we need to solve this problem because they are going to kill us.
Well, you just announced that you need to wipe them off the face of the planet. So if they did go after you, that would be the smart and most responsible thing, especially if they have children. Knowing that you're openly calling for the death of my children, you should be public enemy number one. If we go to a restaurant, you should be the first item on my menu. The Department of Justice should have been cleared and wiped up this shit stain off the ground, and they should use extreme prejudice and treat him like you would a shit stain and you have a bidet, and just wash him. But he's still allowed to spread this rhetoric. And if he's saying this, imagine what others are saying and what they are doing. They're tearing apart the country brick by brick. A country that they didn't build. Our ancestors built this, and it's our job to protect it. What did Benjamin Franklin said? He said, it's a republic if we can keep it. I intend on keeping it.
In the system?
I guess.
Okay.
I guess, Ken, we'll get you out of here on this, which is, has the Trump DOJ, FBI commented to you at all, as you furthered this story?
Only to say that it's authentic, and they themselves posted the document, and I naively thought, oh gosh, well look, here it is from the horse's mouth. They're saying that what I had was true, because people look at this and they think this is too crazy. This can't be real. It's too crazy.
And,
yeah. And I kind of get that. I'm sympathetic. I understand. I thought it was crazy when I saw it, but now the Justice Department has come out and verified it. Like, any number of media can now say, like, not have to worry about the sourcing or anything, because I obviously can't get into that because I don't want to get anyone in trouble.
Yeah, this interview is pretty much over. I mean, this is where they seem pretty right leaning, but this whole, wanting to protect everyone and their speech, even though there's evil speech out there, it just kind of rubs me the wrong way, because it seems like they're in denial about the fact that we're in a time of war. And you know what? Yeah, you're right. I like the old Nick. I like the Nick that said that they should be born in jail and they have to earn their way out, improve their way, and get out. That makes more sense. He, like I said, he's way nicer than me because he has faith in them. I don't. I have zero faith in those people. I think it's a lost cause. And that's why I'm an advocate in repatriating them to be around each other in their original homeland, their ancestral homeland, the homeland they claim. If you're African American, well, that's a different country. That's not the United States. That's I don't know where African American is. I mean, that's not even you can't even get out of the country with that. as a classification. So I don't know what country that is, but maybe we can make a colony and we'll call it African America, and we'll do it on the west coast of Africa. And that's where the ships and the planes will land with the expatriated remaining. By the time this happens, it'll probably be 8% of the population. They won't be 13 anymore. They're not 13 no more now. Not since the mandates. Epstein, when they created the vaccine, it was specifically only for that one group. Epstein and his scientists and these politicians from around the world, when they came together to develop this vaccine, it was for this problem right here.
I will leave on that. So we have to just set up our own system and stop playing and get very serious and not be diverted.
That is the biggest problem facing most of the world, but especially the United States. And people of prominence, they saw through the bullshit and they knew our government and our elected officials were chicken shit and didn't have the stomach for what needs to be done. So they went into the private sector with it and they developed something that is giving all of them particular blood clots, cancer, aneurysms. It's just killing them all. I have a friend that last month had 9 family members pass away. Same month, all Black in California. So my data is correct. I figured this whole thing out with the whole Epstein files. The Epstein files are the COVID files. They keep talking to you about the whole sex stuff. They don't ever talk to you about the scientists. Go look it up. The different scientists that were on Epstein Island that they talk about politicians. They never tell you about the scientists or what they were working on. I give you a hint. It wasn't on how to make Coca-Cola sugar-free. They had bigger ambitions and they were successful. So again, by the time, if we can start repatriating people, their population will be a lot lower, so it won't cost as much. But to leave them here next to you, knowing they want to kill you as a whole. When I tell you more than 90% of them have this sentiment, they want revenge for a slavery that they never experienced themselves or probably never even happened. It's an understatement. They want revenge. They want to see you and your children dead. Now, I wouldn't stand for that. It's just too risky. Are you going to put the risk of your kids? You're going to risk the lives of your kids just so that some people feel better about that's crazy. That's crazy. That liberal ideology it's suicidal. It's nonsensical and it's the opposite of pragmatic. And I'm a pragmatist, But as a man, I have to be grounded. I don't have the luxury to live in the clouds with you guys. I wish I could. I have to live here on earth and I have to make the hard decisions. Me, Pete Hegseth, Trump, we're gonna have to go forward. My guy Brad here, we're gonna do what we have to do. Americanistan or something like that would make way more sense than. But listen, imagine if you have those delusions of grandeur of killing off all white people. If you woke up from that dream, but you're in the African Sudan, if you're in the South Sudan or Tunisia or something, I won't give a shit. I just don't like you living next door to me with those fantasies. I don't. And I don't want your kids who you're raising with that fucked up mentality. I don't want them sitting next to my kid in school. And then one day they try to kill my kid in the locker room or in the bathroom, and then they're going to claim racism and oppression made them do it. And then the judge is a liberal, give them a light sentence. They get out at 18. No, send them, return to sender. Return to sender. Return to sender. We just can't risk it anymore. Ilhan Omar, her people, all of them go. The good thing is we have the manpower and the resources to do it. The bad part is I don't know when Trump's stomach is going to get hardened enough to understand that he's going to have to just turn off his social media for a little while, where he doesn't listen to the critics, and he do what has to be done, or just delegate all responsibilities of this to Tom Homan and to Pete Hegseth. I'm sure they will be more than happy to do what needs to be done, and Trump could maybe go to Mar-a-Lago and take a couple of weeks off and just leave it up to the big boys to handle. Let me know your thoughts. I appreciate you guys talking to me in the chat. I'll be back on with another topic in about 20 minutes. I just wanted to go over this whole, oh yeah, Americans can't be terrorists. Yes, we can. We're not all the same type of Americans. And too many people are claiming to be Americans anyway that shouldn't be claiming to be Americans. Too many anchor babies, too many anti-American people who have a citizenship, unfortunately, and that they never earned. You know, nobody in their family risked their lives for this country. No one's ever served in the military. And you can tell that they just take everything here for granted. So they don't look at the country the way we do. We're patriots. And, you know, they say that the tree of liberty must be watered with the blood of patriots from time to time. That time is coming. They say there's another war starting over in Europe in the next 90 days. The war over here might start around the same time. Ilhan Omar and getting these Somalis out of here. These states are going to have to do whatever they can to keep that here. And if they're going to activate their own local police and military to go against federal agents, well, then we will be in a civil conflict. That's literally, we're right on the cusp of it. And I don't think there's no turning back. So like and subscribe, share the video. I appreciate you guys all tuning in. And remember, America first, America only.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.